Welcome to the Fight Against Boredom Community Gaming Podcast. We are the creators of the Fab community and your host for the podcast. My name is Feka.
And I'm Branks Pro. As you may or may not have noticed, we rebranded the podcast a bit. Previously, we focused on Starbrone, but as this community is growing and moving forward, we want to look at the different games this fine community is playing. And we kind of play a bit more or less Starborn nowadays. How are your feelings on that, Feka?
Yeah, well, so this one's clearly been a tough one, and I think a lot of the community is feeling it. That Starborn has definitely been going in, we'll say, a different direction for a bit. I think for a lot of the veteran players, one of I would say one of my fondest memories from Starborn really goes all the way back now to where a tournament server was, and as buggy and as messy as that was, I think so much of the core mechanics were there, and the fact that it was just a premium only server, right,
Yeah.
with no store, and I think a lot of people felt that was the direction we're gonna go, and the store was only in the game because it's a startup company. We realize it's a payment model that works, but maybe they'll try out other stuff out in the future. And it seems like they're going more in that direction down the rabbit hole. It seems like they're going to smaller uh, server sizes, smaller alliance sizes. They've removed the alliance station last time I checked.
Yeah, and Alliance Assaults as well.
Right. So they've been doing a lot of interesting things with the games. There's been some really weird comments coming from Solid Clouds and either firings or quittings going on all over the place that they really haven't. That's the parts they haven't commented on. You know.
Yes, I think about 6 employees that are no longer with the company, and that's happened in the last 6 months.
And we've been lucky enough to meet a lot of these, well, not meet, but to talk to a lot of these developers and stuff, and for them to, and a lot of the community has, and for them to just be, cut and not have anything said about it, has certainly caused, I think, a lot of ripples within the community.
Yeah. And lately, we've seen a comment by the CEO and owner of Solid Clouds, Grettir, on the Discord saying that they are working on a new MMO product that takes place in the Starborn universe that they will announce in the upcoming months. And in the meantime, they will be running and maintaining Sovereign Space. A lot of people took that as kind of the death sentence of Starborn. The game that we know, or used to know at least. One can hope that that's not true, but from experience with gaming companies, I think a lot of us look at those kinds of comments and assume that that means that the game is going to be just slip into forgetfulness slowly over time, get less and less focus, and then at some point it's no longer profitable to maintain this product, and then it just stops.
Right. And for me, with Starborn, right, and a big reason I invested so much time and so much effort, and I think reasons we're doing these podcasts and videos is for the longevity of Starborn, right? We wanted to see Starborn grow into something more. And to me, when he made that comment, it might not mean, Starborn's dead forever, but it did to me mean features are going to stop, like big things we needed in the game. There's so many broken mechanics. For one that I've always wished for was that solar flare mechanic that's Snugum's always talked about, where they took over time. Yeah. And even small things like that, I imagine those features will no longer make it into the game. They're going to harden what they have right now, and I want them to go back and redo these big, they're big problems, right? The genre Starborn's in has these massive glaring problems with the game, and that's why you see them kind of cycling out. But I think they could have been fixed had they been addressed harder, right? Instead of moving away from them, dig in, because since no other games have survived, you have this pretty large player base that wants to play games like this. We know the problems are there, right? We've accepted the problems already. You're playing your game, right? So you don't need to change. You don't need to, put the game on its head 180 like they keep doing. And so with that in mind, I think you kind of alluded to, we've been looking at other games. We've been kind of inviting people back to our community and saying, hey guys, let's not lose what we got from Starborn. And let's keep playing strategy games and really any games together.
Yeah, a question that comes up time and time again is guys, do you know a game that is like Starborn? So it's a lot of people that we talk to compare what what they're looking for to Starborne, or you rather use that as a benchmark. But more often than not nowadays, they say like they want to play Starborne-esque games without the pay-to-win aspect. I think that kind of escalated over time. Sadly, one of the big draws for me in the beginning was that there was close to zero pay-to-win stuff in Starborne, or it was not that impactful. And that is what I am looking for when I want to play a game. I don't want to... Yes, I want to be able to support the company that creates a game that I really like, and I like to do it through vanity stuff, graphics, quality of life, but not getting a benefit in game, or that helps me win. I don't want to race others based on my purchasing power. I don't. I want to be outplay other people, outsmart them, or just experience, or be it diplomacy, right? But not money. We got that in the real world. I don't need that in my game.
Right, and that's the pure strategic like mindset there too. Now, the most interesting thing I've heard about this question, because like we've definitely as big players in Starborne, you know, people have reached out a lot, and that Starborne-esque is so different for so many people. I've learned it's been quite interesting. So over the last few weeks, kind of since these comments have been made, and since, you know, kind of maintenance mode, the idea has been in our head. I've been trying out a bunch of different games. I've been showing a bunch of different people these games, right? And for some people, it's like it could be the most pay-to-win game ever, but it needs to be in space. Like, I could give them any game in the world, but it has to be in space, and it's just so interesting because, like, for me, a lot of times, like I've really cared about the core mechanics of the game, right? Any extra visual stuff is awesome, but like to me, like the game has to be relatively good or be going in a good direction, right? And it's been so cool, like kind of straw polling what is Starborne-esque to you, because it's been so different for every player I've talked to. And so,
some of the stuff that is Starborne to some people has been removed from Starborne itself over time. For some people, it was the so-called shipyard role, where they just wanted to play less PvP, more economy, and build up what some people call like playing Farmville, kind of. They wanted to play an empire builder, but within the framework of Starborne, the massive strategy game where you work together with others. But for some, it was simply the sheer scale of the game. Like hundreds, even thousands of players, at least in the beginning of the server. When we started, we had servers that with a capacity of 5,000 people. And yeah, at the end of a game, of a match, not everybody was active anymore. But in the beginning, it was this grand scale, this feeling that you got. There's so many people, so much can happen, and you had to approach it that way, talk to people, and cooperate with a lot of people, and even that got scaled down. So I'm personally looking at that combination of the threat of PvP, the not super micromanaging, but managing your economy, like the 4x kind of stuff, and the scale of working together with other people. I don't necessarily agree with that it's absolutely necessary or has to be necessary to be part of a grand group, but that there are some advantages to it, maybe even some downsides. Maybe there's a game where, as a loner or a small group, you can do stuff that a big group is just too cumbersome to do, be it marauding or whatever, right? That's kind of what I'm looking for, and sadly can no longer find in Starborne. But yeah, we've been looking at a bunch of other games, or you more than anyone, and hopefully you can find something like that. And if people within the community have tips, or they've played something, or just want us to take a closer look, feel free to reach out and just mention it. And we're thirsty, I can tell you that.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too, because this all boils down to, I think, everything you just said of like the branding problem that I know Starborne ran into. Like if you were to Google the genre of game Starborne is, it is tough. It is really hard, and it's like what I've kind of come down to is like 4x MMO, or like, you know, persistent winnable MMO, you know, words like this that like don't actually exist as a genre. And that's the big thing too, is there's so many things that this game offers that other games just don't offer. And it's like for Starborne to kind of move away from that, or for them to create a different game, it feels so like almost like wrong to me. I'm like, you have an entire niche of the market that like no one can even touch. And then like one of the other arguments like that people are making is like, well, Starborne's not even 4x because there's really no exploring, right? Like it's like, but
Yeah.
and then you kind of argue, oh, well, making new stations, but that's expanding, not really exploring, looking for good spots is kind of exploring a little bit, and then so like even that's not a good genre name, and so it's crazy, and then for the game to not be a mobile game, right? And because there's so many games like this that are that were like Starborne that are just dumbed down versions, right? Oh, just log on and do this very basic thing. I liked what you said about like real death, basically. Like in Starborne, there's always the chance that you could be knocked out of the game. I don't know many people that for sure were, unless you brought it upon yourself, right? But I've always loved the threat of that, right? I don't think it often happens, but like if you're not playing well, like you could be knocked out, right? Or if you're just like a dick, right? Like no one likes you, you're being mean to people. Like okay, we'll bring the hammer, right? Like this is what's going on. And I've loved that sense of the game, but primarily the community building. That's always what it's been for me. Is like
Yeah.
I want the game to give reason for me to reach out to someone, for me to be like, hey, you should come play with us. Like, you should do this. Like, oh my, come do this. And then, like, you'll be able to, like, help us by doing this other thing over here or this or that. And, like, giving players a sense of meaning and, like, belonging is like, what I'm looking for in a game. And you normally find that in bigger MMOs like WoW and stuff like that. But unfortunately, with, like, WoW or even these new games like New World that are coming up, which I think everyone's excited for, but we have an international community, and we can't set up, hey guys, raid at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because guess what? In Brank's time, it's like midnight for all Australian guys. It's like 4 in the morning, and so we are kind of looking for these games like Starborne that you don't necessarily have to be online to interact with your friends.
Yeah. The community is, and I've said this time and time again, one of the biggest points for why I liked Starborne, one of the biggest draws that I felt Starborne had, again with the grand scale, the community thing, the people you talk to while you're planning and while you're waiting for stuff to happen. And let's not forget, the community aspect of Starborne is what Fight Against Boredom was born in.
Right.
We met each other there. We've built the relationships we've had or have due to Starborne and while playing Starborne, and we've grown a lot since then. But that's where our humble beginnings lie.
Yeah, and it's hard to move away. That's what it is. But yeah, that's kind of getting into why we're really rebranding and what we're doing, right? And then I think like kind of getting into the first game we found that I think was anywhere remotely like Starborne was Neptune's Pride, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of had a cool little community thing going on. And what Neptune's Pride is the way I imagine it is it's a really simplified version. It's just a browser based game. It takes away all the like the nitty gritty micro mechanics, right? And it brings you out to like a full scale version. And I imagine you're kind of playing like as an alliance, right? Because you have multiple. They're just stars in this game. You have multiple stars you're starting out as, and you're kind of expanding. But the big part of the game is this big scale diplomacy, right?
Yeah.
And it was interesting seeing like, is this still Starborne if we take out, the micro mechanics? And like, what were kind of your thoughts on? I know you played quite a bit of Neptune's Pride with us. Like, your feelings of Neptune's Pride.
It's very different. Not having to micromanage the building of your bases and the outposts and counting hex fields, right? Is a bit of a relief, but if you don't have that, I feel like you're not playing something that is Starborne. But it has its little flair to it, that kind of micromanagement. What I really liked about Neptune's Pride was that it was real time, but it wasn't. It's like it worked on ticks, server ticks, and like when production cycles ticked over and ship movements happened and everything like that. And when you set up your matches, you could tweak with the settings of what the speed would be like and everything like that. So you could, the servers were started by players, right? Not the company or the guys holding the game having a schedule of when a server opens. So the community had more control over it. I like that. so you could tailor it to be the experience that you and the people that you had in the match that signed up for the match wanted. That was
Right.
big pull for me.
And they pushed that actually into the monetization of the game, because it wasn't just any player that could create a game. It had to be, they had a basically like a premium version of the game that you paid monthly. Basically, it was something really cheap, but there was nothing you could buy in game. Right, that was another big push for this game. Um, and with that being in, if you had premium, basically you could join more than 3 servers at a time. You could create your own servers, and it had an array of customizable features, which was awesome. So, like Brinks is kind of alluding to, like we could create a game that, either could literally be like ticks, like you could have intern as a function of the game, where you just go to the next tick immediately, and you could have all the players on and kind of just speed through the game. Or you could do every 48 hours we're doing a tick where economy goes and all this other stuff. So with that, I thought it was so cool. Like let's think of a different way of monetizing these types of games, right? Like things that are outside of it, creating a game, like that could have been something like basically hosting a server, right? That could be something that we can monetize that doesn't affect how good you are at the game.
Yeah, that is like we said earlier, something that a lot of people were looking for were the level playing field of you spending money not affecting your performance in game, so that the people making the right decisions are being at the right place at the right time and doing all the diplomacy work. That's what gets you ahead, and that is definitely what Neptune's Pride has. There's a lot of smart decision making, even for economy and ticking and all that involved, which gets you the win. Absolutely.
Right. I would say the one kind of downside I eventually found um, was you do start to miss those little things that add up in Starborn.
Yeah.
Like that perfect place in station, the station placement that has a little bit more resources per hour, so you're kind of gaining that way. Or the amount of mission you're doing, more missions, so doing more solar flares, etc. Like all these little things, and even the monetization of inside of Starborn creates these different level playing fields where you can really scale up above someone else. Where you definitely lost that Neptune's Pride with it being such an even playing field, with there being so many less micro things you can do. I think the game ended up boiling down to a few variables, which
Yeah.
was cool at first for sure, and I still really like the game. They actually even have a lifetime premium membership, and it's like I think they sell it for like $40, and I was like, sure, for the rest of my life, I'm now premium from Neptune's Pride. I love that as well. It's like, you know what, that's awesome that he even offers this. I'm in.
Yeah, it's
But
it's a
it
lighter
yeah.
version, less mechanics, which makes it easier to fiddle with the balancing of the game, I guess. In
Mm-hmm.
case something is off, if you have a mechanically complex game with a lot of cogs in the machinery, so to speak, if you change one of them, you impact so much that balancing can become a nightmare, and really hard to kind of try to see how it's going to affect everything that you want to affect. If you have less mechanics in the game, it's more often than not easier to balance it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also
Um,
easier to learn if you don't have to like sit down and go to university for a year to learn a game. The barrier for entry is a lot lower.
Yeah, they actually even had like a little in-game wiki in there. They have in-game YouTube videos explaining mechanics.
Yes.
I thought that was
Yes.
awesome. There's so many cool things Neptune's probably did, and I think it's been out since like 2013 or something like that, or maybe even a little bit earlier. It being browser based means I could play it on my phone. Oh, you
Yes.
could just open
That
up
was
on your
big.
phone browser. Crap. I think, and then you could on your phone you could go to the browser and make a little app icon from the website, and then so I had little app icons for each of my different games I was playing in Neptune's Pride, and I could just pop them open through clicking on my screen, and that was such a quality of life, man. That that's these are like little things we wanted Starborn to add, right? And that all added up. It's like I think Starborn's ultimate, like how we got here, is death by 1,000 cuts. You
Yeah,
know,
a lot of small
it
things.
it wasn't anything big, and they were so close to the mark in a million and one ways. But especially as you start kind of venturing out and seeing what these other games are doing, particularly Neptune's Pride. More recently, there's basically a clone of it called Solaris that we've also kind of got into. But both these games, it's what they offer is this kind of difference in view, right? What and you kind of reflect on it. What is Starborne really? Well, clearly, we need some kind of little mechanics, right? Because I think that's what's missing from Neptune's Pride. We played it for quite a few months, but it has died down a little bit and just around the community because I think we can't sink our teeth into it all the way. The way we play strategy games, we like you alluded to before, we get so into it, right? And we're gonna pick apart every little micro mechanic, and I think we picked it apart. Not to the point where we'll win. There's people that are really, really good at Neptune's Pride, and they've been playing quite some time, and they'll destroy you. But it feels like there's it's just not necessarily enough depth for me personally. Right?
There's too few avenues to be successful in the game from my point of view. When it's kind of one-dimensional, it's when a game kind of either turns me off or it doesn't succeed in holding my attention. What I felt like in Neptune's Pride is that just you scale your economy and your research, and it's just X+1. Like, if you've got more than me, I'm done. There's very little ways for me to flank you or outsmart you with an unexpected move. In the end, I'll just get crushed by superior numbers. And so it's one of those games where at the start, like, you have to have a good economy at the start, really focus on that, and then just ramp harder than everybody else. That's the winning strat. And I haven't seen any other strat that has a chance to beat that. And I might be completely wrong, but that's what it looked like to me. And yeah,
So Solaris, the kind of a little bit of a clone, the one difference they have, which I thought was really interesting, and actually has added a lot to the game for me, is they have these, I think they're called commanders or specialists, right? And for each ship you have, you can add a specialist that adds maybe more movement but takes away the firepower, or adds firepower, takes away, or like for each of your stars you can add, like, has all this plus economy, but like you're losing, you have no defense. And so they actually added some cool variables in there, and I think it was much needed. I think they addressed that. Still, I think the bag's out on what it has, and I think the creator of Solaris said he might be on the next podcast. I think he'll probably be able to go that deeper.
That'll be interesting.
Then, like, oh yeah, and then one of the core reasons I think I really liked Neptune's Pride at the beginning. I actually had one of my real life friends come join us for one of our Neptune's Pride games. It was actually one of our big community ones. We had like a 16 player, all Starborne, like all these top Starborne guys playing. And he jumped into it, and he never wanted to play Starborne because he was like, it was just too complex. There's too much going on. Obviously the pay to win stuff, what's in his mind. And he was the kind of guy who was always skeptical of how I like to play video games. Like, I like these long, drawn out, like, playing for month-long games. And he's just, I think he knows, like, oh, that's just Fekka's thing, right? But like, by playing it, he was sitting there and he got into the diplomacy and he was talking to people and he was doing things. And he later told me, he's like, oh crap, dude, like, this is what you're talking about.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
This is that core gameplay that is like this diplomacy, we're talking, there's backstabs going on. It's like, I'm getting an offer from people, like 2 enemies, and I have to make a decision. Like, do I join this side that's losing, that I had, like, at the very beginning of the game, had like one conversation with, that was like, hey, let's be friends, and we both said yes. Does that mean I can't fight him now? Like, and he's doing all this stuff in his head. I'm like, yeah, you gotta be careful at every conversation, and you're almost playing like Game of Thrones, like Littlefinger, right? Like, you're sitting there, like, pulling strings from everywhere. Nobody knows your true allegiances but you.
It's the political intrigue simulator.
Right. And that part of Neptune's Pride and Solaris, I can't get enough of, but that's even the part of Starborne I can't get enough of, right? And games like this, and it does that part so well. And that's the great equalizer too. If someone does have more technology than you, right? You go to his other neighbor. Hey, this guy's more technology than both of us. Let's fight him. And there's still at least that element of the game. Like, any multiplayer game like that, I think will always have some kind of a great equalizer. But that's just kind of like, I think the part it does so well, right?
Yeah, but you gotta realize that to some people that's a turn off. I know we've met some people in Starborne who said that you just win the game because you have got more friends, right? Some people want to play those games as more of a 1v1 or small team, no diplomacy, who's the better player, whereas others really like the political aspect, the diplomacy, the working together to overcome your common enemies and stuff like that. It's there is no right answer, but I feel as long as people are having fun playing the game, everything's good.
Yeah, and I think it's cool because like as we go on, I think as we talk about more games throughout these podcasts, I think we'll be kind of referencing Starborne for quite some time. Once again, like you said, because it was our foundation and our base.
It's the
But it was
benchmark.
cool. It's the benchmark, right? And it was cool to see like this is that element that exists in the game that wasn't for everyone, but did hold some people into Starborne. It's what got me into Starborne. It's what kept me in Starborne. But then you have other players, like you're saying, that didn't have a care for that still had a place in Starborne, that don't have a place in Neptune's Pride. So it's almost like a Venn diagram. We're creating Venn diagrams of like what is Starborne, and we're kind of answering what is Starborne by playing other video games.
Yeah,
and it's been cool.
Or rather, sadly, answering what was Starborne, because the Starborne we fell in love with and enjoyed that much no longer exists. It was the Sovereign Space, and then it went to Dissidents. Now it's Omega. It's 500 people server when it used to be 5,000. I once said the game I was promised and fell in love with got pulled from under my feet. So I'm kind of searching for that. Like so many other things in life, we have these memories of moments in the past that we fondly remember, and we're hunting those. Hopefully, this is one of those memories where you can find something very similar and just relive it.
Oh yeah, and I think as we move forward, every time we talk about what is Starborne, we're talking about Starborne sovereign space.
Yeah,
that's gonna be a blanket category catch because I mean I don't think either. But did you ever end up playing Dissidents?
I just there as a moderator, just having a presence, checking it out, screwing around. I can't give you an in-depth view of what was exactly wrong and exactly right with Dissidents. They did some good things. They did some things that I didn't really like and didn't want to play it for. So it didn't draw me in. Same with Omega. It's not interesting enough for me to want to play it, simply.
Yeah, I didn't end up playing it. They also... And this is a big thing. Like we made that community tournament server, right? Server 24.
Yeah.
They knew it was going on. Like, I mean, they promoted it in the Discord, and this is something that I think Starborne needed to continuously doing. But I think they did really well. But they needed to continue doing was taking back community feedback. Don't rush Dissidents. It came out with a ton of bugs. I don't think there was any reason to rush it, unless maybe there was some kind of investor push or something. But I don't know. I don't have that inside information. Wait for the community tournament to be over. Give us some time. Give us some time to really analyze Dissidents. Like we didn't get that time because we were still so focused on server 24 that we didn't get to look at the dips of Dissidents server 1. And I think that may have been a better transition. Now, them putting it obviously halfway through it, I think that starts the whole thing off on a bad track. And I know you can't be held hostage to a few players in your community.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to be aware, that these people.
What do we know about what's been going on at the office? All these like business variables, or maybe they're beholden to some sort of promises they made to investors or whatever that we don't know about. Like it's easy to judge it from our perspective and say, you did this wrong and should have done this instead, but we don't have all the details, so I don't want to, like you say, Germany, lean out the window too far on this one, because I just simply don't know. From my perspective, they could have done it better, but what do I know?
Yeah, and this is just kind of my justification for why I didn't end up playing Dissidents. And then so when Omega came out, even then I was really considering. Muse had actually played a lot of Dissidents. He was kind of into it. I know Jotak reached out. Several people reached out to me. They were like, "Hey, you're gonna play Omega now? We realized you skipped Dissidents because server 24 was going on, and then you kind of wanted a break. But like, this is the time, right? Omega." And you showed it to me. I was like, crap, okay, like it's smaller, you know, XYZ, it's Starborn, so I'll let them do whatever, you know. I'm just gonna mindlessly play the game. And then like the day before it launched, they did that $6 thing for 5K credits or whatever, or $5 value.
And for
uh,
$5, you could buy 2,000 credits, which was actually a
yeah,
$6 value.
that's what it was. Is a $6 value for $5, and like, how did you just value credits for that? You know, like something that hasn't been monetized before. But then like that on top of them restricting the achievement system, so less credits are given out overall, and like they're really squeezing you for credits, and then all of a sudden here just straight up buy credits, and it was once a day. You could pay $5 for these credits, and it's like, well, if you're not doing that, if you don't have gold cards, you know, in the first 2 weeks, and other people do, like, how do you even play the game?
I mean, some people have been talking about like you could, with command cards, reroll your daily challenges and break down the cards and get the credits that way. That that this kind of stuff has been in the game previously, and I agree. It's just not been as easy. It's not been as obvious and not as commonplace. Introducing that credit pack to the store, that obviously just made it more commonplace and more expected, more out in the open. And I think that a lot of people just didn't like it. It sent the wrong message, I guess.
Right. And that's been the whole thing for me. It's a change in the wrong direction. I was okay where we're at. I wasn't happy. But you push and you nudge, right? And you nag and like and all this stuff goes, right? And at some point, like the buck stops somewhere. And it's like, why are we adding more to the store? Like that's not the direction. That's not what's wrong with the game right now. There's so many other bigger glaring problems and bugs. And we're addressing adding more pay to win elements to the store. Because I liked what you said, and it just being real, like this did a little bit exist, but it felt like they tried before. It felt like they tried to come up with something creative, like, oh, here's command cards, and use these command cards to do this, but there's a limit on command cards. You can only buy, like, what was it, 10 or was it 100 a day?
100.
Something along 100, yeah. Which you could do, but it was still a random chance, right? Just straight up paying $5 for 2,000 credits, like there's no thought process, there's no scheming, there's no like anything, just here in your face, right? It just goes into that pile of death by 1,000 cuts, and that one was a stab to me. I did not log onto that server, and I had full intentions to.
It's also that at the same time as the duration of the server being shortened to 1 month means that most of the stuff you can buy is more impactful because it will impact a larger portion of the game total, as well as the fact that it's only 500 people now. So one guy really throwing the wallet at the screen and going all out is a bigger portion of the player base doing that than if one guy does it in the midst of 5,000 people.
Yes.
So even though the actual stuff that you can buy from the store hasn't increased by that much, the ecosystem in which it exists has changed to where it has become way more impactful. To the point where a lot of people say like this game is now pay to win. And even though the company might need it to stay afloat, or not, I don't know, from the perspective of the user, the customer, many of them have said, in the vocal minority at least, many of them have said, it's gone too far, I'm leaving. And I can tell you that the Discord has become a lot more quiet than it used to be, sadly. I hope that this changes with the MMO product coming out, and I hope that it's a curveball that surprises all of us, and it's a great success. I really do. But Starborne itself, the sovereign space, to me, it's something of the past, sadly.
Yeah, and I really, really like that last point you put on about it kind of like the amount of money you're spending per the amount of time you have like in a server really adds up. $5 in this little period and in 1 month in a smaller alliance adds so much more. And so it's I loved how you phrased that last bit, man.
Yeah. But Fab is still here. We're still playing other games. So let's see what we got.
Absolutely, man.
And talking about Minecraft, we have with us today our one and only Fear. Welcome, dude.
Hello.
So in Fab, we for a while now have been playing Minecraft together. We tried first on some like virtual machine that somebody had for us, no, and didn't really go as well. And then we've used some of our Patreon money to actually rent a server to play Minecraft on, because believe it or not, it's actually chunking. Since then, we've had Fear manage that for us, and we're now on our second iteration. We've been going through a mod pack previously where we thought we were prepared, but we weren't. That was a lot of work. What's it like to run a Minecraft server for the Fab crowd, Fear?
It's actually pretty relaxing usually, until people start complaining about TPS and lag. Then it becomes a giant juggle of making sure that people don't get the lag in the first place and answering their questions really on and just troubleshooting. I know initially when we did interactions, there was a lot of TPS lag initially, especially when we got into the overworld. And
yeah, we went
what we had
hunting for animals. We had something called the lag goggles, right? So you could look at stuff in game and see specifically how much processing power does that thing take, how much lag does it cause. We were looking at like animals and zombies and certain machines. I remember I think I found like a hellfire furnace or something. I just looked at it and was like, oh, okay, this is lag right here. It's
Exactly.
an interesting experience like that, because normally when you just play Minecraft at home, you don't have to deal with that stuff, but now you're playing on a machine that isn't your own, and everybody experiences lag, some more than others, and it's a different set of challenge. It's been interesting in a way. Not for the people that suffered the most, I guess.
Yeah, is that a separate mod pack then, those goggles, or is that like just actually some weird built-in server tool?
It's a separate mod that we had to integrate into the mod pack, and it was optional if people wanted it. But the people who had lag goggles and could utilize this to spot what was the TPS troublemaker really. And through this method, this was like our earliest methods of troubleshooting TPS. Later on, when we migrated away from, as Frank said, from non-access server, and we got a better one, it kind of just resolved itself because we got a better CPU, more storage. So.
That's interesting. How many people are playing on it, and does that really affect a lot of it? A lot of the lag issues a lot of the time.
For interactions, there used to be a fair amount of people, like 4 to 5 people playing. Now it's down for another server really, which is ATM6. But whenever people were on, it kind of depends. If they were in a dungeon and there was a bunch of mobs spawning, because mobs will usually be the TPS offender, the server would chug, and therefore what would happen is that once the people got off of the dungeon, the server would start getting back to like 20 TPS. I remember like Brank spawned right next to an icy dungeon, and we were all like, "What the fuck is causing this lag?"
Yeah, there were so many mob spawners that just because I lived close by were always loaded. So they were just spawning mobs, and the mobs were doing their thing, and the server had to calculate all that, because what Minecraft does is chunk loading, so the world is generated in chunks, and if nobody's close by a chunk and it's not seen by anyone or anything, it's generally not loaded, so the server doesn't have to care about it, even if it was once generated. But if you're close to a chunk where a lot of stuff would be going on, then the server's like doing it. And I, unbeknownst to me for quite some time, was right next to a dungeon with a crap ton of mobs in it. And I spent, I think, a week day tripping into the dungeon trying to deal with it. And it was difficult. Just calling the numbers and dying several times in there. It made it quite interesting. It was a challenge that I wasn't prepared for, so it's like a story I'll remember for quite some while. Yeah, quite a time, just going in there over and over again and sliding across ice and getting headshot by, it was a minotaur with like a totem pole as a weapon and stuff like that. Crazy.
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting little hack or tip there, is like if you're experiencing a lot of lag, like, ooh, I found a dungeon, guys. Like I bet there's a lot of stuff going on over here. You don't even need to go looking for it.
Either stay away from it or clear it now.
That's funny.
One of the things that I also wish to mention is, as time went on, people were complaining for interactions that it was a little bit too complex. For some people, this is a good thing. Adds a lot of content, adds a lot of very nice things that adds progression. So over time, there was a lot of things to do. But for some people, there was a bit too much. So we were thinking, what if instead we had a more kitchen sink pack, right?
Can you explain for people what kitchen sink means? There's a lot of questions when you say that at times.
Of course. Kitchen sink means a pack that has mods put into it. The mods are made to make sure they work fine with each other, but otherwise they're as raw as they can be. They're unmodified. They're as their intended product, as it were.
So
Right.
a collection of mods that had some work put into it to make sure that they work with each other.
Pretty much. But otherwise, like to make sure they don't conflict or they cause a crash.
Yeah.
But otherwise, there's no quest line that links them all together. It's just go watch your own thing, just explore the mods that are available on the table. And one of the packs that was on display was this one, All the Mod 6. Posted a poster down here. And people were really interested in this one specifically, primarily because it featured one of the latest Minecraft edition. So there was Netherite and the new Nether update and whatnot.
Yeah, because normally when you play modded Minecraft, you have to play on an older Minecraft version, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember when we looked at our options for mod packs for the newer server, it stuck out to me that this one, All the Mod 6, would be playable on the newest version of Minecraft, which that was just a bit of novelty for me that made me vote for that one specifically.
What are the newest Minecraft updates looking like? Like, what would you be losing out if you had to roll back like one or two editions?
The newest Minecraft updates, whenever you go to it, vanilla Minecraft, of course, they add like new content that come along with it. But for the modded side, some mods do not get updated to the newest versions of Minecraft, or they just simply haven't updated enough. For example, for All the Mod 6, this one uses thermal series and not thermal expansion, because thermal expansion has not been updated, which is a tech mod that is well known throughout the modded community. So therefore, you will be losing out on some modded features, but at the same time, you are trading this off when playing on the newer Minecraft version, which might be more optimized or might work better, as it were.
I mean, they also integrated some of this stuff into the baseline Minecraft experience, right? Vein mining, for example. Instead of mining one block, you can mine like coal blocks that are adjacent to each other as one action. I think there was like a big furnace. I think that was the vanilla part, not the modded experience, where you put together 27 furnaces.
Actually, that's modded.
One. That's the modded one? Damn.
Yeah, that's modded.
I was hoping that was vanilla. I just saw that and I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, but they every now and then with the updates to Minecraft, they add new features like small new animals, small machines. Like sometimes it's just something like fences or signs or lanterns or stuff like that. Right now you can play around with that.
But yeah, the only consequence that just really arises here is that we may not have some of the good old mods, but it's been around for some time now, Minecraft 1.16, so we can definitely like get some pretty good mods out of there. So All the Mod 6 presented itself. So what we did then is, since people voted for this, is we started up the server. There were of course problems initially that people were complaining about spike lags and whatnot. We got around to fixing it, and after a fair amount of time, it kind of resolved itself, you could say.
So you didn't actually do anything. You just waited.
There wasn't a lot we could do about spike lags. I'll be fair with you. Like the most that we could do was reduce viewing distance, or it already had a mod which dynamically adjusts your viewing distance. So that already fixed itself. We can't really fix the amount of mobs that spawn per player because the plugins like Bucket has not updated fully enough for to incorporate modded servers. Not Sponge either. There just wasn't a lot. The only fix that we really could have done was just, I don't know, wait and see what happens really, and try and reduce lag machines that would have otherwise happened.
Yeah, I know at the beginning of this server, there's this command where you can like warp around a bit. People were doing that to try to find like a good spot to start out on. And every time you do that and you warp into a completely new area, all the chunks around you have to be generated instead of just like generating the chunks you walk close to when you normally manually explore the world. I think that added a lot of like latency to the server. Yeah.
But there were also other problems with trying to fix. For example, me and Crafted tried to get the server to periodically restart using a script in Docker, like every like 12 hours. But even that was having problems for some odd reason, where the server would just stall, so we had to remove that script in the first place. There have definitely been a lot of options that me and Crafted have tried, but I will admit, this Minecraft version, and perhaps by except mod pack, is a bit cursed. At least on the server side management issue. But it appears that people have been having fun, primarily because it hasn't been as overly difficult as interactions.
Yeah, I remember that just in the first server we played, that was so very not difficult. It was more that to do one thing you had to do like 12 sub actions, like craft 15 components to make one little machine, and then you kind of wanted to make 5 of those anyways. So it just took so much time and so much effort that I spent more time doing kind of chores than actually playing the game and enjoying myself. So I kind of fell out of that, which seems now with all the mod 6 it's not the case. So if anybody wants to play on our Minecraft server, how do they go about it? Who do they talk to?
As you said, like they could download all the mod 6 through CurseForge and download the mod pack, and then put it, and then just launch up all the mod 6. Once you've done that, if you want to join our server, message me, Pickling Fear, or Baneling Thing in this case, or Crafted Cart, or can you whitelist pranks?
I don't know how.
Dang. Okay, but I'll tell you that later actually. But by extent, you might even be able to ask pranks.
Yeah, by the time you hear this, I might be able
to. And then we'll just whitelist you to the server. Go to the pins for the Minecraft server to see what the server IP is, and off you go. Bob is your uncle.
Once you spawn in right next to a wall with a bunch of signs with like server rules kind of and some tips. I suggest you read them. We had people that spawned in, completely ignored that wall, and then asked a bunch of questions that were easily explained if you would just read the signs.
That's always a problem though, right? Like that's always like the
yeah, I don't need the tutorial. Wait, how do I do this thing?
Yeah, and all the mod packs are also they're linked to the Discord as well, right? Like you can just go there, and that way you don't have to go searching or really questioning for what mods to download, right?
Yeah, we have explanations of how to do it.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because a lot of that stuff can definitely be daunting. Trying to even how to even get your toes into that, how to download all this stuff for a lot of people that haven't done it.
But I mean, in this case, it's really quite straightforward, because if you've got CurseForge, which is the mod manager for a lot of games, the pack is on there. So it's a bit of like plug and play-ish. You just click download and it does its thing, and then you're kind of done. It's very easy to get into. All right. I guess we'll keep our eyes on Minecraft and see how many people play on the server and what they do on it. We'll probably get back to this again in the future. We're also playing a lot of Civilization 5 nowadays in our community, and we have our own way of playing the game, a bit modded, and we're playing it one turn a day on our dedicated server. And again, we've got Fear with us, who is the mastermind behind this and can explain to us how that works and why he does what he does. What's up?
The day game mode came as an inspiration from one of our fellows saying an infamous game, but make it less time demanding.
Yeah, imagine if you could play Starbrone with one turn a day. I think that's what started us on this track.
Yeah. To get the day game mode to work, there were a couple of things that had to be done. For example, you had to manage productions for every city, the science that every city produced, and the text and whatnot. But all of it sort of just came together. Civ 5 already had.
we didn't want to play a normal Civ game and just do one turn a day, because then the match could last like a year.
10 years.
Potentially. So you wanted to speed it up so it wouldn't be as drawn out and maybe like boring, because if you do one turn a day at the normal speed, you wouldn't be doing that much every day, right?
Exactly. So we put it all together. We got the day game mode speed, and we did a few playtests. What we did here was we increased the movement of units by 3 times, so that you can do a lot of movements in the first turns, as it were. And everything else was just adjusted so that there's just a lot more to do. Turns could take, like one turn could take 5 minutes, 6 minutes to do, which in a normal game of Civ, like if you were sitting with other players, other people would be screaming at you, do your turn already.
Lock it in.
But in a day game mode, it's a little bit more relaxed, because you have enough time to do those 6 minutes. You could do it any time you like. And by around turn 30-ish, which is around 30 days have elapsed, you could potentially reach the modern era by then, if you focus on science. By turn 20-ish, the World Congress or 15-ish, the World Congress could be founded if someone's a really avid explorer, which currently in our playtest game, we don't have a lot of avid explorers. I'm trying to get exploration done. And currently, I think it's looking pretty good in general. We're trying to fix some bugs. For example, one of the most recent one is great scientist stacking, where you can advance really fast. When that is noted, and if there's other complaints, that will be fixed in the next patch. And to say how long the game stays on for, it's around 2 months, I expect. So 2 to 3 months, 60 to 90 turns per game. I know that Branks at one point said he wouldn't mind if it was much longer than this. But one of the problems we face with the game is that you can only have one game per server at a time, because Civ 5 netcode is just spaghetti.
Yeah, no, we've been dealing a bit with it where so normally you'd lock in your turn, and then during a certain time of the day it would just jump over to the next turn. And as we started the server, we had quite a debate on like when should that time be, because people from all around the globe are playing together, and so it gives some people some advantage compared to others. That debate, just there was no reason to have that, because the netcode being the way it is, it fluctuates. Sometimes it just lags behind, and it takes a certain turn like a day and a half or 2, and we kind of like to have to kickstart the game again. Yeah, I guess this is the first match we got going, and we're trying to solve some of the issues we've got, not just with game balance, but also with like how we are doing it on the server. And yes, people have been asking us, why don't we do it on Civ 6 instead, the most recent version of Civilizations. The reason is we're using something called Pit Boss to do these kinds of games with each other, and Civilization 6 just doesn't have it. So there you go.
We have big plans coming in for Civ 5 and the modded experience, as it were. For now, we're keeping it mostly vanilla, just to get the main days game mode speed fleshed out. But once that is done, what's going to come up next is we're going to change policies. We're going to change how spies may work to make them a little bit more engaging to the player. There's going to be changes on, we might even add custom civs in if people want some different civs to play around with. There also is going to be buffs to religion as well, and make it a lot more into the game to play, as it were. There will also be more victory conditions at some point as well that will be tested out. For example, economic and religious victory.
Ooh.
And the list just goes on and on and on.
I mean, how about like going for economic and religious at the same time? Like my $6 valueism religion that I had during one of our test games.
Oh my god. The victory conditions in that case would vary. For example, religion would be have a certain amount of the world converted to religion and own whole holy cities. Economic would be have this much DPT, but also have all the luxury resources. And we can change the conditions if they seem so OP.
Yeah. But I mean, we're not playing completely vanilla, not just because you modded it, because we've been playing on a custom map as well, right? And it's the Game of Thrones map.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Which has been very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I keep thinking about, like, where in the story of Game of Thrones am I right now? So it adds a bit of spice to it.
And there's another point as well: custom maps. People can okay, fine. There'll be people who've been spying on maps, but I'll make a way to make sure that the resources are always random.
Yeah, we've had that issue. Like, if you were playing on a random generated map, it wouldn't be a problem. But because we are using a map that is created by somebody else, everybody has to download the map, which means some people can take the map they now have on their computer and look at it in a map viewing tool and see where everything is, and so kind of like explore that way and spy around. But I'm still unsure of how big of an impact that actually is.
Telling me our community's metagaming. Those guys are trying to win.
Yeah,
But if you
every advantage.
Yeah.
There'll be lots of maps. People will be able to vote on maps in the future. We'll be able to choose if people are good sports, that is.
Yeah.
And we can have inverted Earth map, Game of Thrones, maybe some other fantasy maps that you like. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I still want to play on a donut map. I know old Civ games from my childhood had the donut map where the Earth didn't just loop around left to right; it looped around like top to bottom as well. It's just blew my mind. I want donut map again, please make it happen. Fear.
Yeah, we'll have a look, see what we can be done.
So we are I guess like every other or every third weekend we're doing test games to play test this 10 times speed mod, I'll call it.
Yeah.
It's not dead set on a date, but every now and then we just realize we've got enough people to test. So it's an ongoing process with the balance, and it's really fun to just sit there and crank out a game and go through the turns rather quickly compared to like the normal speed of Civ 5. So yeah, if you're interested in helping us test that and want to partake in one of those matches, just let us know. We got you.
I do want to also mention about these matches. They're on purpose. They're a bit. I don't know when it will happen, just to see because this is a relaxed thing. It's not like we want you during these every 2 weeks to attend these matches. We don't want that.
Yeah, you have to. You have to show up. You made a promise. I'll hound you.
Well, I think that's the cool idea about doing a game like this in general. Like these longer term games. Originally, you would think like, oh well, now I have to be committed to this for so long. But in a lot of ways, I think it's a little bit the reverse. It gives you the time to get to the table. Gives everyone kind of the fair way of playing a board game at the same time without being like, oh I can't be on here and everyone's yelling to take your turn. Like these full day things. It all adds to this philosophy.
Yeah, it's super relaxed. It's one of the big reasons why I was so hyped for this, is I could just do it whenever during the day. I just hop on with a cup of coffee and some biscuits, and I take my turn, and I take my time thinking about where to move my stuff, who to do deals with, what to build next, what to research next. There's no pressure, and I don't have to do it fast because it's turn-based, which leads to a really relaxed gaming experience for me. I'm really happy about this. So, do you think, or have you heard anything about Civ 6 possibly getting the pit boss in the future?
Civ 6 pit boss.
Because what exactly is pit boss, for the people that don't know?
Pit boss. It means, should you log off of a server, your turns will not be taken over by an AI. But if it's not pit boss, sorry, let me rephrase that. If it's a pit boss and you log off, you're still registered as player, right? The AI won't take you off, as it were.
Okay.
But if it wasn't pit boss, should you log off, the AI will take you then.
Okay. Is this a built-in feature to Civ 5, or is this a mod?
A built-in feature to Civ 5.
Okay, and they did not repeat that for Civilization 6. Big sad, big oof.
In fact, one of the things that we'll need is a dedicated server for Civ 6. And they haven't made some sort of pack or feature for dedicated server. And as we all know, with a dedicated server, it involves networking. And as we all know, that is out of bounds for modding.
Yeah, it's been a bit interesting, like what the experience is like with the server. So whenever the turn ticks over, some people are there and they just want to get in and do their stuff. And now you have a couple of people that do their turns all at the same time. And that leads to a bit of lag and a bit of shenanigans. So it's been quite interesting and challenging as well. But yeah, ongoing progress, or rather project, and we'll keep you all up to date as to how it develops and where this is going. And hopefully we'll have a lot of interesting games in the future with this.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Fear.
No props.
It's great insight. All right, guys, and as we wrap up this podcast, there's kind of like one last thing we're doing is our Patreon. And so we've set this up to both support, the podcast, our actual community, and I would say probably the broader thing is servers we're hosting now. So we actually own our own Fab server that we host multiple games on. Like we mentioned earlier, the Minecraft, the Civ. We actually also host an Avorion server if you're into that. And as we look for more games like Starborne, I know Ymir is one that's kind of like that you can actually host your own private servers of that, and that's something we're considering as well. But by having this Patreon, it kind of gives us the options to be able to open up and do things like this. And even we've been talking about doing some cool community events where, host some mini tournaments, maybe have some kind of a reward, or I don't know. People talk about mailing T-shirts or doing anything, but realistically, it just opens up the possibility for that. So Patreon is just one way to support us. Obviously, don't feel like you need to, but it's obviously like super big thanks to everyone that has done it already. Anybody that will do it. And I think Brinks has some more parts we could really show the big picture.
Yeah, you could just go to our Patreon, and I'll link it in the description and the YouTube video below. Check out some of the benefits you can get as a supporter. It's a Discord role, shoutouts, and even fan requests at the highest tier, where you can ask us to take a look at, be it a certain game or a certain streamer that you really like because he or she's entertaining, or whatever. You just talk to us, and it's simply a thing. If you like this community, you like to throw some money in the pit so we can do more cool stuff, then that's your avenue to partake, and we'd be really thankful for that.
Yeah, we even actually have enough supporters for Discord Nitro. We're level 2 on our Discord now too, which is just unbelievable, right? So this stuff, you guys have supported us so much. We thank so much for everything you guys have done. And also, if you guys have ideas, like you've seen other communities do XYZ with their Patreon, we're super open to ideas. Like we've been doing it for quite some time now. We do have a little bit of money stored up, and we're really open to ideas. And what does the community want to do, right? So we're excited for that.
All right. And with that, we thank you all for listening to another episode. Ping Lilas, and have a good one.
Keep up that fight against boredom, guys.